Hello everyone, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Andrew, I'm from Ataman Studio, and here is Tony from BCI Construction. Hello Tony.
How you doing? Nice to be here.
Today we are going to talk about the commercial project that we are currently working on in Monte. So it was two spaces, one was massage salon and hair salon, and we are converting these two spaces into one medical office. We are going to talk about change of occupancy, of the detailed process from A to Z. So first of all, Tony, can you explain me a little bit about your experience with this project in general with commercial projects? How is it looks like?
Yeah, so first off, we have experience in commercial build-outs. We call them tenant improvements when they're already a core and shell. We come in there and whatever the existing service is, we'll change it to either the same type of service or we can convert it into whatever that they're looking to do so. So in the case here in Monte, we have 3-unit building. You had a bakery, a massage parlor, and a hair salon. And the owner who owned the entire building wanted to combine the hair salon and the massage parlor into one consultation office for his podiatry business. And that was going to be important for him for it to be a consult center. Because when you start to get into it on the health side, where it becomes maybe more involved with surgery, anesthesia, all that, you start to get into different health entities. So being that it was to be a consult center was really important for him.
And when you first look at this space, what was your initial reaction? Did it look like an easy remodel?
In general, this is an older building, but when we walked in here, the most important thing that we look at, first off, is the surroundings, right? Do we have easy access to bring in materials? Is it a busy street? That sort of stuff. But inside the space itself, it was pretty clean. There wasn't really any furniture, so it was a pretty cut and dry when it comes to that. So to converting that, it wasn't going to be something way too difficult. And we don't really have any neighbors other than the bakery next door, but they operate during the night hours, so that's really helpful to not disrupt any businesses.
A lot of owners think converting a salon into a medical office is just moving walls and repairing. This project involves a change of occupancy. We are going from a personal service use to a medical consultation. From a contractor's perspective, how does that affect the project?
Yeah, so you definitely need to look at, like I said, the type of business that you're trying to build to, because ideally you'd like to, if you want to build a gym, it'd be nice to find a gym before and convert it, because there are some times you have to look at the cost of things. So for the example of this case, usually, anything in the beauty space, massage or hair salon in this case, maybe you have a lot of plumbing for sinks, things like that. So when you're converting to a medical office, maybe there's 1 or 2 sinks. So there may be a lot of, capping of plumbing lines or relocating them, that sort of stuff. In this case, there's a lot of outlets and power that's needed, for either devices or each of the patient rooms, so that's accessible. So that sort of stuff you want to look at. But in this case, again, there wasn't too many sinks throughout the space, and so it was generally a pretty good cutover.
Yes, and one of the main things that we need to change once we're doing the medical consultation center is we need to change the layouts to have it ADA compliance. So we need to change all the restrooms, the entrance, the hallway, everything to make it ADA compliance. How did you modify this structure, and was it complicated from contractor's point of view, or actually not a big deal about this? What do you think?
When it comes to ADA, this one wasn't too bad because, again, we're already demoing the walls. So, the walls are going to have to be a minimum width to be ADA accessible. And then joining 2 bathrooms. So one of the bathrooms need to be ADA compliant, which again, maybe just relocating or shifting the toilet over and the sinks and making walkways open. And then you have to have, which is already existing, the parking stall has to have an ADA accessible for parking there. So pretty seamless on this one.
What do you think about the fire safety? So previously it wasn't fire sprinklers, it doesn't have fire sprinklers. So do you consider to adding it, or it doesn't make sense?
So that's going to be dependent on the fire department. They're going to dictate the type of building, in this case, type 5B. They didn't require it. We're below, it's 1,700 square feet. There's a certain threshold of square footage and the type of occupancy, maybe it's multi-story, that sort of stuff, that the fire department is going to say that you need to actually install sprinklers, and in this case, we didn't have to.
So actually about this, during the permitting process, we are going to submit to building safety, planning, and fire department as well. So if we really need the fire sprinklers, the fire department is not going to approve the project without it. You don't have to worry about this during the construction process, because if it's required, you'll be known about this during the permitting process. The main reason why we are making this video at all is because we got a lot of requests from the investors and owners of commercial spaces who wanted to make tenant improvement in their actual spaces. So we're going to explain what is important to pay attention at once you are looking for buy or sell or convert or to do some tenant improvements. And Tony, can you explain me what really important in this type of projects?
So of course, like I said earlier, like it depends on the type of business that you're looking to create. Think of this as if you're shopping for your home, your personal home. What sort of amenities do you want to be in that existing space? Because if it's not there, you're gonna have to spend money to get to that, right? If you want a sauna in your house and it's not there, you're gonna have to pay to get a sauna and do all the the work to get to that point. So same thing with your commercial space, right? If you're trying to build a nail salon from a previous nail salon, it's going to be a lot easier to do so. But sometimes people are set on the location. Maybe it's on the specific corner in LA that's going to bring in a lot of people. So it would be good to have, maybe somebody in that space, like a contractor, to walk with you, to give you ideas and ask you if that's a good idea to do so and what it's going to take, and give you, maybe some projected budgets of what it is to get to that point. You want to look at different things too. Believe it or not, this place had no HVAC system. They had wall-mounted units, so we had to install a brand new, air conditioning system. So these things can be, cost a lot, and if that's not within your budget, these are things you can look for. Those sort of things that you can look out for.
It would be good also to determine all the things that you will need later before you start construction, before you start drawings, during like the first walkthrough with an architect, with the contractor, and to determine what exactly will be needed potentially or not potentially in the future. And one of the question is, how often do older commercial spaces require unexpected upgrades when walls are open?
No, when the walls are open, I mean, you have a good indicator of what's going on in there. You could generally see, you don't need the walls to be open to understand what's behind there, because you see what outlets are in there. Rarely you're going to see something buried in there to understand what scope you need to add there. Because based on the type of space that you're building to, what needs to be accounted for. And if I'm not seeing enough outlets on the wall or something like that, and we're designing to have outlets there, then we'll do that. So that's not always like a showstopper to keep going.
If we are talking about this particular project, so what do you think about the plumbing? Was it significantly different compared to salon use or no?
No, there was very little plumbing on this one. The salon, we just capped at the locations, where they had a sink. We reused the existing bathroom spaces, so we didn't have to do that. We didn't really need to use, there's no break room or anything like that to be able to have to add plumbing throughout the space. Each individual consult room just needs power and a place where the doctor can see the patient.
So the main quest in this project was not the plumbing, but actually we just needed one restroom, ADA compliance. It was a challenge. Then we upgraded the electrical panel because it was very old and there was no HVAC system, so we added a new one. The rest actually was pretty smooth, no?
Yeah, no, this is a generally smooth process in the grand scheme of it. Can't complain. When the owner owns the entire building, it's very helpful because we also have a parking lot in the back that makes it a world of a difference to be able to stage materials, deliver materials, and not overcrowd the space. That's one thing to actually account for when you're talking about efficiency of construction, so that you can leave materials here to just jump right next to the next sequence instead of only bringing it as you start building when you have limited space.
And what do you think about windows and doors, the old one? Do they require to be upgraded, or we can keep the original one?
That depends on the Title 24, right? So
yes.
The U value rating and all these things, ideally you don't want to touch them because that's what triggers it. But when you're talking about changing the type of space to something newer, you still have to run your Title 24 calculations anyways throughout everything with your electrical and HVAC system to make sure that it's according to the new code.
So what does it mean is, let's say in this particular property, we are not going to change anything outside. So we keep the exterior walls, exterior windows, doors, everything. We're just making tenant improvement inside. So we are demoling a few walls, adding a new walls, adding a new doors and new spaces. But outside, it remains the same. So looks like we don't need to change the doors or windows because they are already existing. But in reality, if we're doing this tenant improvement, we need to comply with today's code. So we need to upgrade these windows and doors based on today's regulations and today's Title 24. So be careful, even if you're not changing outside, you can still be required to change the windows and doors like to meet today's codes.
All right, so we're here standing in the reception area. This is where patients are going to come through this window opening and check in and things like that. You're in the reception hall where everybody's going to be waiting in. You got the two entrances here actually because of the two suites, so we decided to keep that. And then as we come down the hall right here, you're going to see all the different patient rooms to your left and right. You're going to see them in different sizes, for different uses, whatever the doctor needs. And the nice thing about all these ones on the left side here, you've got two-way access with the different hallways, so just makes it easier. So you're not walking around, and again, doctors being as efficient as possible. So we come down here, we're talking about ADA upgrades. This is the customer restroom. This one had to be ADA compliant to be able to meet those codes. We walk over here. This is the office space. Probably multiple, medical officials that want to sit there, including the doctor himself. And then as we go to the other side of the hallway over here, this is where all the employees, we're going to have kind of little data room, but this is basically just going to be the break room, and just kind of have their own restroom in the back over there to be able to, rest and get going so they can get back to work. So this is a space.
Let's talk about the permitting, about this project and in general. So what happens if someone decides to make tenant improvement without the permits?
I mean, it's a huge risk. I definitely wouldn't advise it. More than likely, being that it's a commercial space, and especially if you have, high traffic area, more than likely, whether it's the city or somebody just might report you. They'll give you something called a stop work notice, and that is attached to a nice little fee and penalty that comes with that. And usually it's probably about double the amount of if you were to actually go through the permitting process. I understand why people do it. It's not necessarily always tied to the cost. It's usually to the time, right? To tell people that you're not going to start construction for at least 6 months or something from the, the moment they think about the idea, it's hard. But you have to go through a series of channels in the permitting process to make sure that these are all approved and checked by the right plan checkers.
So in any case, the most safest way is to make everything with permits, because in commercial projects, most likely you will be catch anyway, because it's like commercial. You're going to get the people here, like your clients, and earlier or sooner someone will report this and you'll get the notice. Once you get the notice, you have to go through the whole process again. Let's say this commercial project, yes, if the client would do it without the permits, let's say it started to work, then someone in 3 or 4 years reported that it's unpermitted, then he got notice in like 4 years, and he has to go through the permitting process, everything, and he has to go through all the inspections. So it's like foundation, framing, insulation, all the inspections. So basically he will have to stop working and to go through the process later on, and with more cost involved. From your perspective, how important is it that the drawings are done correctly before construction begins?
Oh, it's so critical. So, make sure you find, a good architect and design team. It's not just about how cheap they are or how quick they are. They need to be very efficient. Usually a good architect and their whole design team will have a lot of referrals. So see what cities they've been involved with to understand that process. That helps a lot. But more than likely, you're going to have corrections on a drawing when you send it to the city. So that's not a knock on the architect or the design team. It takes a long time to revise those corrections. When you start to get 3, 4, 5, that can start to delay the process. And so, really vet your architect out. And one thing I'd say too is, like, especially from an investment standpoint, or, someone wanting to do any type of construction, if you know you're going to do it, do the design as soon as possible. Oftentimes people are, of course, thinking about the budget. Of course, that's a really big deal, but you're not paying the construction costs right away. By the time you actually get to construction, like I said, 4, 5, 6 months, even when you pull a permit, you don't need to start the construction right away. And, usually you have a permit that's good for usually about a year or so, and you could file for, an extension. So, don't get too worried about that you need to pay right away, and work with your contractor about a good payment plan throughout the process.
And also, it's a good idea to have architect and contractor and design team engineers to be involved at the beginning during the design process. So it helps to have at least overall idea about the budget, so the client can make, let's say the client wants to make some changes, but then contractor came and say, oh, we can do these changes, but it will take too much time and too much money. So it's better to make it different way. If all the team is at the beginning, it's very good start to start this process. And okay, if you're talking about this particular project, to change occupancy from massage salon to medical office, was it the main focus of the city's review or inspection, or not really?
Well, it's a part of the process, right? When you check the type of occupancy that you're dealing with, like I said, for medical, the whole deal was that it had to be a consultation center. When you start to go above that, like I said, like the surgery center, all that, then you might diving into other like health entities that make you check a lot of other boxes and get other approvals, which fees and time and things like that. So the type of occupancy is just one of the steps when you're going through the review process.
Yeah, and this process can take some time. So as Tony mentioned earlier, it's good to start design and permitting process as soon as possible, because once you get the permit, once you obtain, first of all, you have some time to pay for this permit. So once you pay, the permit will be issued, and once the permit is issued, you still have, like, depending on the city, but 1, 2, maybe sometimes 3 years to start construction. If you don't have resources to start, let's say in 2 years, you can pay just for extension of the permit, and you can start in 4 or 5 years. So it's much better to have the permit approved, and once you're ready to move forward, rather than to wait until, let's say you want to start construction and you wait in 6, 7 months to get design and approval for your project done. So we are standing right now in this window, what's going to be the window for reception. Right now we are going to talk about the permitting process, planning, and pre-construction and construction timelines and everything. So from architecture point of view, we started working on this project like 1 year ago probably. So it took us, I would say, a month and a half to complete all the drawings from the feasibility study. Then we did measurements, existing drawings, proposed drawings, and submitted all this package to the city. Then the permitting process took us roughly, I would say, around 6 months. So first we submitted to planning department. It's supposed to go through the planning department. Then we got approval from planning and we submitted to building safety. Once we got approval from building safety, we were supposed to submit to the fire department as well. So we submitted, and it took us some time also for fire department. Once all these drawings were approved, yeah, it took us roughly like 6 months. Then the construction began. So Tony, how long do you think this construction will take from start to finish?
So of course, depending on the scope and the size of it, but in general, what we've been seeing these types of sizes, to be honest, anywhere maybe from like 2,000 to 20,000 square feet, you can knock them out pretty quickly based on the labor that you have. So I'd say anywhere from about 12 to 16 weeks, 3 to 4 months, and that completely depends on obviously how the progress goes, any sorts of delays, but things that are maybe not in your control can be maybe owner changes, they decide to change the scope midway, inspectors that aren't really being friendly, maybe they're backed up, just trying to schedule a next day inspection is impossible, maybe they're a week out, so that really kind of delays how things go. A big part of it too is when you start throughout the process, if there's a landlord that's involved, how much are they helping you out, and are there a lot of restrictions that don't allow you to be as efficient as you can possibly be? Maybe you're getting noise complaints, or they're saying certain activities can only be done during certain hours, or they need to check things. So it really depends, but on average, we've been seeing about 3 to 4 months.
You have a lot of experience in commercial projects. Do you think like 3-4 months, is it regular, or is it fast, or is it one timeline?
No, I think it's pretty standard. Again, it depends what we're doing. We've done shared office spaces, we've done a commercial gym, bakery, things of that nature, and they've been all roughly, like I said, around anywhere from like maybe 2,000 to 5,000 square feet. But even the ones that we've done larger, we'll man up and get the labor that's required for that, and get those as efficient as possible. So
you're telling me like 3-4 months is the whole timeline for construction from start to finish until you
Correct. As soon as we pull the permits, we give ourselves about a couple weeks to look through the drawings, make sure from when we bid the job to make sure that there's no cost impact. The city sometimes has corrections and changes things that we need to make sure that there's nothing significant that we need to let the owner know. And then once we get going, yeah, that 3 to 4 month time clock starts all the way until we receive final inspection, and then certificate of occupancy after that.
And from your experience in this type of projects, what takes most of the time? Is it like design, permitting process, or construction?
I think construction is the easiest part, especially, the owner, like I said, he owns the entire building here. It's very hard to give any sort of permitting time frame. Every city is different. El Monte was a bit difficult because they're still on paper. Like, they don't really accept anything digital, even to where when we went to pull the permit itself, you have to come in person and sign a physical piece of paper. So a lot of people are a little bit behind with the times. And, initially I would tell clients, yeah, it's going to take you maybe 2-3 months, for design. And sometimes we see up to 6+ months a year. And it's really unfortunate. I think cities are staffing issues and just kind of efficiency that they're trying to get better at. And we just have to be honest with how that is with the client to give them a realistic timeline.
Yeah, but I also wanted to mention that it's not typical. Like right now, mostly I would say 90% of cities in LA and county and even San Francisco, San Diego, so they are moving to online system. So most of the cities, they accept online payments, online submitting, online corrections, everything online. So you don't need to spend money time for printing the drawings, going back and forth with the city. But in this particular city, yes, it took some time because it was everything on paper. And during the feasibility study, so it's the first phase, we need to check what is the system in the city. Is it on paper or is it online? If it's online, much better for everyone. And I think in the next few years, like all of the cities will move to online version. They just say, I asked them why, and they told we don't have money because we need money to move our system, but it is what it is. Also, what I wanted to ask you, what factors can delay the construction in projects like this?
Inspectors can really make or break you. You have to kind of play ball with them and make sure that you're adhering to what they want. So we try to mitigate this by doing a pre-inspection before the job even starts. So after we receive permit, we'll schedule a pre-inspection, meet with the inspector, and just say, what's your style? How can we accommodate or make sure that we're being pleasing to you, and what do you like to see? Are there any things that you'd allow us to just send you photos of instead of, again, waiting to schedule to look at insulation when you can take a picture of it, for example. That really helps us, get rapport with the inspector, be on his good side. Sometimes that doesn't always work. And even if there is, you have to just kind of go with it and make sure that you're assuring the client that everything is, going as smoothly as possible.
And what do you think about this? How often unforeseen conditions in older buildings extend the schedule?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Of course, you need to be mindful of it. I mean, there's only so much contingencies that you could build into a price when you're giving the client, because if you put too much, it's not appealing. It's going to be a high price before you get in the door with them. And if you put too little, then that can come in the form of change orders. So you have to kind of find that sweet spot, what could be potentially if we open up this wall that is going to make us add scope. So we try to build into that under each trade line item for that, and to ensure that we're not coming back to the owner and saying that there's added costs unless it's significant.
And what about this particular project? Do you have any delays because of these reasons or no?
No,
really?
This one was pretty seamless. The only thing this one had us, using the existing panel. They are pretty old, so we did need to upgrade one of them, after conferring with the design team. But no, other than that, this is pretty smooth. We only got a couple RFIs on this one, so that's a good thing.
And you mentioned that typical timeline for this project would be around 3-4 months from start to finish construction. And what do you think? Is it possible? Like, what could be the best potential? Like, is it possible to make 1 month or 2 months if the client is really want it as soon as possible? And what could be the worst case scenario? Let's say with the plan checker delays and reinspection and everything.
I'd put, you have to play it safe. You have to account and, almost unfortunately assume the worst, so that we don't give, false expectations. I'd say at best you can do these in 3 months, right? That 12-week mark. The worst, that could be a big variable. Like I said, you could be huge delays that are, you just can't understand why it is, maybe up to 6 months or something. But this has never happened to us, fortunately. So. And
what's the biggest mistake people make when estimating timelines for such conversions?
Well, they tell them what they want to hear. They'll say I talked to this person and they told me it only takes this amount of time.
And
A lot of people, they don't understand too that, there's multiple jobs, right? We have the way we staff things, we try to be efficient in line. Like when we have the framers on, we'd like to do it to where we'd have them on this job and maybe at another job possibly nearby. So it's very efficient and, to let them know that we have the manpower to do so. So if we start, false promising these types of things, they're going to get the wrong impression and say, you told us this, you this. The best thing that you can do is, if the owner requests it especially, is just to provide a schedule. And that creates those buffers under each line item where you're adding those extra days just in case. So that if it does go over to that point where you're like, hey, I walked the space, how come you're still painting? Your schedule says this, then it can be a talking point and you can let them know what it is and tell the full picture.
Okay, so we are on the roof of this building. So you can see it's under construction right now.
Yeah, so we're above the bakery side right now. So on this side is where we combined the two suites of the massage parlor and the nail salon. So you see we're re-roofing everything. Like I said before, we have the new HVAC system. So we brought the outdoor unit. We craned it up last weekend. Set it nicely and ran all the power and stub outs that's necessary to get that going. And this is where your air comes down and all the ductwork inside each, not just patient room, but all the rooms that's required for it. So this is an older unit for the bakery. So you can kind of see the difference of what they look like now. Much bigger one that's going to accommodate a larger space and give them some good air, especially during the summer now as we approach it.
Also, you can see here, so this structure is divided. Like this part is our project and this one is bakery that remains the bakery right now. So you're converting just a part of this building to the medical center. Now we are going to talk about the most important part of this video. Actually, the reason why most of you are watching this is the cost. How much it costed. And so Tony, how much project like this usually typically cost in LA area?
Yeah, so it depends on the type of building, the type of construction you're going to be doing, right? Every scope is different, the size of it, and what it's going to take to get to that, that finish line. But on average, what we've been seeing is maybe anywhere from about 200,000, 300,000. It's a very rough estimate just for the construction portion of that. There's a lot of factors that go into that, but just in general, what we've been seeing.
It also depends the condition of the existing building. So if it needs some upgrades, if it needs to improvements, it will add on cost. If it's good, let's say in this particular building, the structure is almost no changes. Yes, so basically it saves some money to the owner. What are the biggest cost drivers in medical tenant improvements?
Well, for this particular one there was a lot of electrical. We had to add quite a lot of outlets. And just roughen boxes, even for the low voltage system here. There was no HVAC system whatsoever, no AC, no heating, no nothing. So you have these, old school wall mounts that are still in the walls here, but the entirety of the HVAC system was a big driver for that. We had to bring, brand new outside unit, crane that up onto the roof, and in every single patient room and all the rooms actually, put some air in throughout.
If you're talking about percentage of budget, how much usually goes to electrical and mechanical upgrades? Let's say in this particular case.
In this one, each of those ones are probably about 25% each. I think when you're talking about in general for the scope, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, which we call MEP, MEP usually covers probably at least 50, 60% of the scope itself. They're engineered typically. You have typically separate drawings for that. And so they're very detailed systems that need to be engineered and making sure that they're adhered by. It's unfortunate because everybody looks at the finishes, and these are things that are behind the walls. So when you actually get to the finishes portions, a lot of clients find that there's not much money left because those systems, they take a lot of money of the budget.
So this budget you're talking about, does it include finishes or it's like separate finishes?
No, it includes finishes, and that includes us providing the finishes itself. But speaking on that, finishes is a huge driver, right? There are variances and different degrees of different types of finishes. So we do a lot of kind of value engineering or different just sitting down with them to let them know what look do you want to achieve. Sometimes people are married to a specific material. Others are like, no, just get it to look like this. So we may be able to find maybe a cheaper quality of material to help them achieve their budget.
You mentioned that MEP part, it it takes roughly like 50-60% of budget, then we'd say 40% that's left, it's for finishes. What else?
Yeah, so in the beginning you have your demolition. If there's existing walls up, anything that you need to safe off the existing MEP systems, just to make it clean for construction. We didn't have any structural on this job in regards to the foundation itself, but account for that as well too, right? If we're talking multi-story, you're gonna have to open up the existing slab and reinforce to help with that. So there's that portion as well too. But yeah, the remainder would be the finishes itself. There's also some things too that aren't necessarily that need to be on the drawings submitted to the city. For specifically here was the data system, low voltage that encompasses data, your audio visual and security. So for this one, we added a lot of data ports just so that all the equipment wasn't running just off of Wi-Fi. They wanted hard Ethernet connections, as well as the owner wanted to put some security cameras, kind of around the perimeter of the building. So those things you don't have to go to the drawings, but those were added costs that was requested after the drawings.
To not have surprises later, it's very good to order not just the architectural drawings and actual building construction drawings, but also an interior design. So because when you order a separate package of interior design, it's supposed to include some renders, of course, nice renders of your future space, but it also includes a nice spreadsheet when you have all the items you're going to buy with pricing, the quantity. So it's better for you, for contractor, for the client, for everyone to have the better budget idea in general, and it helps you to keep your budget like what you expected to spend. If you're talking about ADA upgrades, how expensive ADA upgrades typically is?
Again, it depends on what the floor plan looks like. A lot of ADA upgrades go towards the bathroom themselves, right? Maybe you don't have enough space. It's inexpensive to put, grab bars of things of that nature. But when you need to, accommodate to have a larger stall that's just for, somebody that fits the ADA description, then those are things that might be able to add up. But in general, I think fairly inexpensive.
Were there any unforeseen expenses in this particular project?
Not unforeseen in the nature that, because of the building, other than that the upgrade of the panel. You can kind of figure that, even though you don't always have access to be able to see these things ahead of time, but you can kind of figure that sort of stuff. But other than that, a lot of times there's just owner changes. Owners have different ideas throughout the project. Maybe they want to change or upgrade to a different material along the way, and they're perfectly okay with that. We just discussed those costs and what that impact might be, and then let them kind of decide that. Some finishes are really important for some people, and in some of the spaces that really need to pop out, right? You see a lot of different kind of luxury business spaces now. Those types of ones, I highly suggest, dealing with or hiring an interior designer just to sit with you to help you kind of curate the space that you're looking to build.
And what advice would you give to the business owner who is going to do the tenant improvement project once they creating the budget for this project?
So, we kind of mentioned it earlier that I highly suggest to get all the players, the stakeholders, as we say, to be involved from the beginning. We have AI now on the internet and all these different things where people are relying that it's going to give them all the answers, but sit down with people realistically and have someone that has experience in the field to sit down and give you rough estimates to see if it's realistic. A lot of the times we'll sit with clients and they're like, can you come over or can you do this? And we'll do that, and it's no problem at all. That's the best step that you can actually do. But once it comes down to cost, they actually sometimes we're miles apart, and they have sometimes no understanding as to how much something might cost or how much time it's going to. They end up putting it on delay or maybe not even pursuing the project at all. So do your due diligence, lean on professionals to help you out with that. At the end, it becomes a fun thing once you actually start getting going and create that space for you.
Yeah, it's actually a good thing. Tony mentioned that ChatGPT can give you some pricing, but ChatGPT cannot make your tenant improvement. So it's better to talk to someone who is actually going to perform the work about the construction, timelines, and all the things. Let's talk about common mistakes the owners make. So what's something you wish every client understood before starting the project like this?
I think in general as a whole, like how the project comes together, like all the different players, right? The painters, the mechanical, the electrical, right? Not one person does everything, right? You're getting all the different cooks and bringing them to the kitchen and you're sequencing it properly. So a lot of the times, people say, well, why don't I just do it? And I tell them, I said, you can, that's completely your option. And it's just about, who we know, who's properly skilled for that type of trade. And really, do you have the time to do so? There's a lot of things that come up throughout the construction process that some people, maybe they don't have the time, or, sometimes the understanding just to get through those challenges throughout the way. So it's really important that you have someone that's going to push through those things, not high emotions that, these are part of the job, that's going to, mitigate these issues and think to help you and really manage your budget. A good contractor is very conscientious of their client's budget, not to create cost impact, but to help with those damages, push back against the inspector if there's going to be potential cost impact. So sometimes with the inexperience, you may not be able to see that stuff. So, I challenge all that kind of, owners to kind of see it that way, and maybe have a little bit of grace, when we provide a price, and ask questions. We're always going to be honest about why a price is what it is, and there's always room for negotiation.
So what Tony also I wanted to add, so it looks like it's easy project just to convert something, but in reality it takes a lot of time. These inspections, going back and forth with the inspector, and someone always needs to be involved here in the construction. That's why you need a good team to start this project. Otherwise it will just take you forever, and you're going to have probably not the best time. So better just hire someone who has experience with this type of projects, and he will do mostly everything from start to finish, so you'll have just easy life. And it's fire round. So I'm going to ask you quick questions, and I will give you A or B choice. You can just choose one of those two.
Okay.
Bigger headache, electrical upgrades or HVAC upgrades?
Electrical.
Bigger risk in older construction, unknown structure or outdated utilities?
Structure.
More likely to delay a project, change orders or inspection scheduling?
Depends. I'll say change order.
Bigger mistake, skipping permits or underestimated timeline?
Timelines.
Harder to control, budget overruns or schedule delays?
Schedule delays.
Truck or Tesla?
Tesla, I gotta be biased.
Better investment, yearly feasibility study or fixing issues during construction?
Feasibility study.
Harder to deal with, tight deadlines or tight budgets?
Both.
More stressful moment, first day of demo or final inspection day?
Final inspection.
Job site at 6 a.m. or client meeting at 6 p.m.?
6 a.m.
Today we covered a typical tenant improvement project. We talked about everything that is important. We started from the feasibility study, the permitting, designing, then construction, cost, timelines, everything. Thank you for watching this video. If you are interested in projects something like this, you can contact us or just watch this video. You have a better idea of what steps you have to go through. Thank you for watching. Click subscribe, like, comment, and we'll see you in the next episode.